Hello, Joshua Crumbaugh here again with Fishing for Answers. Today, I have the enjoyment of Marcos, who is the CISO of H.I.G Capital. This is going to be really interesting because he sees attacks that you maybe don't see in other types of industries. And actually, I want to dive right into that. Before we got started, Marcos Marrero was telling me about an attack that he's starting to see happen more and more frequently. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Well, thank you for having me, Joshua.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
for being here.
no, definitely, my pleasure. It's a very interesting attack that we see in our particular case within the private equity industry, and it's one that I had never seen before. We saw it a couple of years ago for the first time, and that is where scammers actually set up a complete data room with decks, PowerPoint presentations, MSA agreements, NDAs, trying to get our deal folks to look at a potential acquisition. Because what we do as a private equity organization is we'll buy either a minority or majority stake in an organization, and then go ahead and execute certain actions to increase value in that organization and hopefully sell it for a profit down the line, right? Just a short bit on what private equity is. Some folks may not know. And it was an interesting attack because we had never seen that before, in where they really did take the time to not try to break into HIG Capital, but try to get HIG Capital to actually invest in an organization or a company that didn't even exist. So, sorry.
Oh no, I just want to know more about these documents. Did they put them together? Do we think? Do we think they stole them? Uh, I'm just curious.
Yeah, based on what we saw, they put all this together. This is a very, very elaborate one. Yeah, very elaborate. Because they had, like I said, the whole shebang. They had decks, they had financials, they had NDAs, they had MSAs. It was the whole thing, pretty much.
They
And
probably
there
even
was
had
no
employee
indication.
agreements in there.
Probably, yeah. I'm trying to remember exactly everything that was in there, in that data room. But what was interesting is that we saw no indication, and we scrutinized and looked at these documents up and down, and there was no indication whatsoever that these were stolen from anywhere else, or that they leveraged information from anyone else, or from any other organization. These were actually crafted documents for this scam.
So presumably someone on their team has experience either on your side of this or on the acquisition side, but having been through the venture capital fundraising side of things myself, I know what amount of work goes into putting that data room together.
It
Not
does.
just putting it together, but maintaining it. I mean, it's a massive thing, and so to be attractive, which that's easy, they get to lie, right? But to be attractive, not throw off any red flags, and make it a good bit through. That's incredible. So, what happened? When did they get caught? How long did this go on?
So one of the things that's very interesting about HIG and its investing principles, and its way of approaching that space, is we like to physically visit the locations. Our investment professionals will go out and visit those locations of those potential acquisitions, meet with the individuals, right, that are either in the C-suite or are the executive leadership team, from those companies or those potential acquisition targets. I don't think they were hoping, or I don't think they were thinking that far in the future. I didn't think that they thought, at least the scammers didn't think that that would happen. But that's something that happens very early on in the process. So our folks were pretty much duped at first. I mean, they were reviewing documents, they were putting it through analysis and financial modeling, to understand if this is a potential acquisition they want to take a deeper look into. And it did reach that stage.
Did they have any malware in any of these
Nope,
documents?
completely clean. No malware whatsoever. No links. No, there was nothing.
The red teamer in me says missed opportunity, but jokes aside, this is crazy. So they got caught because, or figured out what was going on because of the visit. So what actually happened? How'd that go down?
So when the investment professionals were reaching out, well, they were already in consistent dialogue, right, with the scammers. When they reached out wanting to plan a site visit, and to meet in person, radio silence at that point.
Mm,
And that they found it a bit strange.
flag.
Yeah, big red flag. Found it strange. A couple of days go by, radio silence. None of the documents have been updated in the data room. They didn't see any activity in the data room whatsoever. And then one of them was a bit suspicious at that point. They started doing some research on this company, and then comes to find that they can't find any trace of it really. There was a few that had similar names to the fake company, but they couldn't find any trace of it. And that's when they reported it to us. We started taking a deeper look into it, not even knowing it was a cyber event at that point. And when they first
Yeah.
reported it to us, we didn't even think it was a cyber event. We're just, let's take a look and see what is it that they're wanting to for us to take a deeper look into. And lo and behold, after reviewing it further and having conversations with them, and them walking us through their process of their conversations and reviewing the data room and all that, is when we came to that conclusion.
That brings a whole new definition to the value of meeting in person, right?
Absolutely.
Wow, that's a wild story. So, is this a one-time isolated event, or is this something that you're actually seeing happen on a regular basis?
Isolated event. It will only happen once. We have not seen it happen again that we know of or that we're aware. I wouldn't be surprised if it has happened again, but it just probably didn't make it past that initial pre review, right, of that acquisition to see if it fits with an investment thesis or whatnot, and if it's something we want to pursue.
Yeah.
I think it's something interesting about private equity that folks may not really know unless you're in or working in the industry, is that for every 100 deals that we look at, we may only potentially take one toward an investment committee review. All the other ones we say no to.
Yeah, no, I mean, having been the guy that got said no to a lot of times before I got a yes,
Hmm.
I'm very aware of just how many times or how often people say no. And it's, I look back and I'm like, man, I wouldn't have said yes back then either. So, I guess I had a little bit of growing and
Right.
mostly, well, it's a whole different thing. Without, getting distracted, and if you can actually say anything safely without potentially exposing any sort of inside information, did you take any steps to, ward off those types of scams early
Um,
or identify?
not from a cyber point of view, but I do know that in our conversations with the front office, they were going to make some tweaks to their process of reviewing potential acquisition targets that are in the pipeline at a much deeper level earlier on in the process, to sort of kind of weed out, right, where there may be some fishy, no pun intended, things that going on.
Well, hey, I love puns, and honestly, to me, process is a critical layer of security,
Absolutely.
particularly in today's day and age. And I think that brings up another great subject, and that is AI. It's changing everything. There's a lot of stuff happening around it. Uh, what are you most concerned about as it pertains to AI?
So there's two different angles that I look at it from when it comes to HIG. One is we're consumers of AI. Right? We have AI or generative AI capabilities turned on wherever it makes sense within our tech stack,
Yeah.
and across our business apps, like anyone else, right, or any other company is doing. And then there's the aspect of how AI is weaponized and used as a tool by attackers to be able to just further increase the sophistication of their attacks and bypass our controls. Right? Gone are, as of now, is my opinion, and I think very soon it's going to be something that the industry is very much going to fully recognize, the days of grammatical errors
Oh, yeah.
in phishing emails.
Actually,
Right?
grammatical error, something that we've talked about a bunch of times on this show, is almost more of an indicator that it's safe now than that it's dangerous. I mean, it's
Yep.
funny how the advice we gave a couple years ago is literally the exact opposite now. It's that
Yep.
perfect grammar that's the red flag. It's the robust vocabulary that is the red flag.
Yep.
I imagine AI must have been used in the creation of that data room, at least to some extent, because there's a lot of information that goes into a data room.
So this occurred about a little bit over 2 years ago. So I'm not
Okay.
sure if it was actually used
No, probably
for
not.
it.
They were terrible back
Probably
then.
not. Yeah, but probably not. But at the same time, we don't know.
Yeah. Well,
You know.
either way, it's giving people easier access to information. It's giving people that who would otherwise be too lazy to do stuff the ability to do stuff very quickly. It's making the script kiddie a lot better at what they
Yep.
do. I mean, you can literally embed Chat GPT or a local unrestricted model directly into your Kali Linux these days.
Yep.
Uh,
Absolutely.
that to me is a little bit scary because one of the things we had going for us was that a lot of the attacks or at least most of the noise was coming from those attackers that really weren't that good. So you only had this small handful of highly sophisticated attacks, and I think that's going to go up. And I think they're going to get quicker as a result of AI too, which means we've got less time to get them out of our networks.
Correct. And it's an interesting sort of realization that I came to a couple of years ago is I no longer call those type of attacks highly sophisticated. I call them highly skilled,
Fair,
because it's
fair.
highly skilled individuals that are behind those attacks. And they know how to hide themselves. And those are the real ones that you have to be, really. Those are the ones that keep us up at night as CISOs, let's say, right? Because those are the ones you're going to find out after they're gone and after the data's gone.
Unfortunately, yes. So my background, I actually used to run red teams, and we almost never got caught. It was rare that we would get caught, and even if you were able to keep us from being able to run our malware, we just used Windows administration tools to
Yeah.
get everything in your network. It
Yep.
just went a lot slower because we didn't have our malware.
Exactly. Yeah, just living off the land, right? The
Yeah.
typical what we've known for years now, right? As a security industry, is leveraging what you already have.
Yeah, and new lol bins living off the binaries and lol
Hmm.
scripts are being discovered every day still. I mean, maybe not every day, but way too frequently. Hey, use this tool to download your malware. Use this tool to inject it into memory. Use this
Yeah.
tool for this, and you stack enough of these tools that people don't think are really that big of a deal, and it becomes a big deal because often the vulnerabilities are like a bunch of lows. And well, we're going to get the criticals where before we get to the lows, but those lows are what lead to utter compromise.
Well, agreed.
Okay, so what other unique threats are you seeing or even not unique, but what other types of threats are you seeing in your sector?
The standard that you sort of find in pretty much every other industry. Nothing really unique other than the fake company, right, or fake
Yeah,
potential deal story that I told earlier. It's really your standard BEC that we find. Phishing emails very rarely make it through. I think our email security, not just ours, but I really think just the industry, email security gateways and services have just gotten a lot better at detecting and really quarantining those type of threats. The BEC ones and the ones where the man in the middle attack is played because it's a compromised vendor or third party that you trust, you do business with, you know who they are, and it's not strange to receive an invoice
yeah,
due email from them or something like that, right? So your standard type of attacks is what we find. We spend a lot of time educating our employees, not just on potentially recognizing phishing emails, but really if you see something, say something. If it's suspicious in any way, shape, or form, say something. You
yeah,
never know. We'd rather um, really take the time and investigate what is that suspicion that you have, even if it turns out to be nothing. It's not a waste of our time, I tell them. The other thing that we do too with our highly critical areas such as treasury, accounts payable, folks that are handling money, right? They're moving
Yeah.
funds in and out. Is your offline controls. Technology controls are not going to always solve the problem. Fraud has been around as far as anyone can remember,
Oh,
you
absolutely. I
know,
mean, yeah,
and yeah, and
we
cybercrime
just have
is
new names
literally
for it.
right, and cybercrime is just essentially fraud using technology and digital means to execute it.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
all. That's pretty much what it is at the end of the day. So your
Social
offline
engineers are con
processes,
men.
exactly. So your offline processes, if someone's asking for a change in payment details, verify that via a callback. And we've caught several, a handful, probably half a dozen over the years, in where it was a compromised third party that we used, and that we worked with, and they sent in emails changing details,
Mhm.
waiting, not even asking for an invoice to be paid and creating an invoice, just waiting for the next invoice cycle to
Oh,
kick
yeah.
in. So they knew that it was already maybe 10 days away before that payment came in. Oh, hey, by the way, we've changed our banking details, and then just hoping that that invoice gets deposited into the account that they have control over.
There is a great deal of that. One of the tactics that I see that's very successful there is consent phishing, where they, instead of asking you to type in your username or password, or instead of trying to run malware, they have a Microsoft 365 authorization window pop up, and all you have to click is authorize,
Yep.
and immediately they've got access to read all of your emails, and potentially even write and send emails through your account. And because it's through the API, it, well, most often bypasses MFA if you're not hardened enough within your network. So we see a lot of that. And it's not necessarily people like you, but like you said, they're customers, they're clients that are getting
Right.
compromised. And that's when it becomes an issue.
Right. Yep. I agree. 100%.
So we all, I assume you run phishing simulations, do you?
Yeah, we do.
So, first of all, do you have any great stories around fishing, whether it's, the impressiveness of the attack, or just funny and comical, or just wild and almost awe-inspiring? Do you have any stories you could share?
So it's funny because we've gotten to the point, and we talk about this internally within our group, that we've trained our users so well via the phishing simulations and the awareness training, and other aspects of our security awareness program, in where they are now reporting more valid and legitimate emails as suspicious because just something was off, right, in that email, whatever it may be. They weren't expecting it, etc. And we're our team is spending a lot of time actually going back to users and telling them, no, this is a legitimate email. I mean, it's not, it's a safe one. You can go ahead and action it. And it's funny because we sit here and we talk. Well, I think we've trained them too well at this point, where it's sort of becoming a bit of a taxing, on the team, right, with all the emails I have to review on a almost daily basis at this point now.
I will say that's a great problem to have.
Yeah.
And it really does go to show that you're empowering your users, you've motivated your users, and you've built that culture. So I would imagine, based on what you're telling me, that from the very top, the managing partner or CEO,
Hmm.
that they're pushing security very hard. Would I
Very
be
much
correct
so.
on that?
Yes, very much so. I am blessed, and very fortunate to work for an organization that values and understands, the need for cybersecurity. Really, and it's really in the DNA of the firm. The firm is very conservative in nature.
I like that.
That's one of the main reasons why I mentioned earlier, we can look at 100 deals and pass on 99 of them, right? Just because there's something that just doesn't fit within our investment strategy, investment thesis, based on the conservative nature of the firm. So, because of that, risk is something that they want to maintain at a very low level across the board, not just cyber risk. It could be any other type of risk. But I am fortunate enough and blessed, like I said, of having the tone from the top. Our two co-founders and co-CEOs very much understand the importance of this function, understand the importance of this function enabling the business to continue to grow.
I like it, and there's not enough places that do that. So then let me ask you this question, and I have a feeling I know what your answer is going to be, but nevertheless, I'm going to ask. So your users, are they the greatest asset your security team has, or the biggest threat?
Both. They're
I
actually
was
both.
trying to make it more binary than that.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
Okay, so if I have to pick one, I'm going to say at this point, I would say they're the greatest asset that I have. When I sit with either outside investors that are doing due diligence, or I'm speaking to other third parties that we do business with,
yeah.
I tell them that I have the biggest department in the entire company. Every employee is a human firewall.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. I was like, I thought that hell had frozen over because
Mm-mm.
a CISO was telling me they had the biggest department in the whole company. But that makes sense now. I'm gonna have to use that line in the future.
All
I'll
yours.
distribute it, but definitely gonna use that. Um, I like that. You have the biggest department in the whole company.
That's how I explain it. Yeah, every single one of my employees is a human firewall. On the front lines. They're the ones that are going to be attacked, and they're the ones receiving the
Sorry, I
attack.
have a soundboard over here. Had to try it out. But no, I mean, I like that, and I do see how it's not so binary as to if they're the greatest threat or the greatest weakness. But I do see a very negative mindset sometimes inside of cybersecurity that's fortunately starting to change in favor of, hey, our users don't have to be the weakest link, but we got to do more with them. So I imagine that you do a lot from a security awareness perspective to help drive that culture.
Yep.
Talk about some of the things that you do that maybe are unique.
So I don't think there's anything unique that we're doing, at least in my mind. But maybe to others that will listen to what those unique or what those things are that are part of our awareness program, they may see it as unique. But in our particular case, I mean, this culture that we have here at HIG, very risk averse, conservative in nature, increasing the security awareness of our employees across the organization. This didn't happen in a day or a week or a month.
It's
This is
not
this is
something that
years in the
happens
making.
overnight.
Yeah, this is years in the making, and slowly building up that program, where it was from the point of view that we would do security awareness training once a year when I first started, and phishing campaigns were also done once a year.
That's how
Now
it
we do,
used to be done,
yeah,
until we all realized, hey, this doesn't work. We've got to do more.
exactly, and I started morphing that because and I put a lot of investment and time and resources into the security awareness program and really empowering my GRC team who runs that program across the firm, to really expand it and mature it. Because if we're able to empower our staff and our employees to be able to become much better human firewalls and report suspicious activity and behavior like we're seeing today, it just makes us that much safer at the end of the day. So we went from once a year training, once a year campaigns, phishing campaigns, to now we do phishing campaigns on a monthly basis that are completely randomized using AI. Every employee will receive a different phishing email that is very difficult. There's been 2 or 3 instances where I've even had to look at the email very closely because I thought it was a legitimate one. No employee receives the same phishing campaign at the same time. It's all at different times depending on when they're active. The security awareness training is very much customized for that employee's human risk score within our security awareness platform. So the riskier you are, the more trainings you get. The less riskier your behavior is, the less trainings that you get. And those trainings are targeted and customized also. Then we do some offline things where we do lunch and learns throughout the year with different offices, either virtual or in person. We also partner too with law enforcement personnel in different jurisdictions, and we actually have them come in and run through actual cyber cases that they've investigated. Particularly, we use here in the U.S. Our partners, great partners at the FBI. So I'll have folks from the cyber squad come in and they'll run through that and do a presentation in that case. And then there's your typical newsletters and off the cuff bulletins that we may send out for particular things. One tactic that we like to use also in the awareness program is how do we make cybersecurity important, or have folks realize the importance of cybersecurity in their personal digital lives. One thing we stress in the awareness program is these courses that you're taking, these trainings, these phishing campaigns, why we're testing you, this is not just to protect the company. This is to protect you in your digital life also. We all live digital lives nowadays. We all have social media. We all have, we transact online from both financial perspective and others. So the better we can equip you to identify suspicious behavior protects not just the company, but also protects you.
Yeah.
And that is the key differentiator that I've noticed in my career. And I've been doing this now for 24 years. Again, very blessed and privileged to have grown up with this industry also, as it's morphed into what we know today, is that when you make it personal and you flip the script on someone and you show them that you have a keen interest in helping them from a personal point of view, all of a sudden they start perking up and they start paying attention a lot more. It's not just this, oh, I've got to do this because the company's telling me to do this.
That's a recurring theme on this show. One of the most common bits of advice that the CISOs and CIOs that I talk to give is make it personal. Why does
Yep.
this matter to me? They care a lot less about, hey, we don't want to lose our, executive bonuses this year than they do about, hey, you want to be able to get a mortgage, right? You want to be able to get a car
Eh,
loan, don't you?
yep, exactly.
Okay, so that's actually a really good segue. I'd love to hear about your background, how you got into cybersecurity, and maybe a little bit about your career and where what you've done.
Sure. So, like I mentioned earlier, I've been now blessed and privileged to have been in this industry now for 24 years. I remember starting back in 2000. It was late 99, early 2000 when I started in cybersecurity. And like a lot of folks in the security space, I started off on the IT side. I was on the IT infrastructure team and a service desk before that. Always had an interest in security, but just didn't know how to get into it. It wasn't a big thing. Not a lot of companies had
True.
security departments, right? And IT was pretty much doing the security work themselves. And the organization that I worked for at the time underwent an audit, and it was in the financial services space. So the Federal Reserve came in, they did their yearly audit, they did their IT portion of it, and one of the things that they recommended was hiring an information security officer. So they went ahead and the company hired that information security officer. I got his ticket in the service desk to set him up on the first day and set up his computer. So I was like, oh, that's cool. I get to set it. I get to ask him, right?
I'm gonna
What
go make
pointers does he
friends with
have?
this guy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right. I can get some pointers and in how to
I love
break
the
into the
ambition.
security,
Do it,
break
yeah.
into the security field, right? So I'm there. I'm talking to him. Nice guy. I tell him I have an interest in security, but I don't know how to start. Like, where do I start? What should I do? Any pointers or any advice you can give me? And he looks at me and he says, I'm going to need a security analyst in about 6 months. Would you be interested? I was like, absolutely, but I don't have any experience. And he says, I can teach you security. The important thing is you know the company and the culture.
Hmm.
And that is more important than actually knowing the security aspect of it. So lo and behold, 6 months later, I transfer over to his team as an infosec analyst. Started there, moved on to engineer, then moved on to architecture. Then at that point, running security programs, probably for now the last 10 plus years, as head of CISO and head of security programs.
That's an incredible story. I love that you went, you found him, and he gave you some really, really good advice. He was certainly ahead of his years. I mean, in the early or 2000s, cybersecurity, I mean, like you said, that not only were there not a lot of jobs, but it practically didn't exist.
Correct.
We had all these peer-to-peer networks that just directly, connected these these computers together. We had zero security on most computer systems,
Yep.
so you're connecting your computer up to literally hundreds of thousands of other computers so that you can download the newest movie or, whatever game you want free. I must have gotten a lot of malware onto computers and a few of the places I worked before I got into cybersecurity. Um, that's actually a really great topic. So I've heard social engineers before say you can't social engineer a social engineer. Not true. Social engineering takes advantage of sort of unconscious human behavior or
Correct.
behavior that's on autopilot, which means any one of us, if we're hit at the right time with the right thing, can fall for something. I know I almost fell for one of the fish that I designed because I was like, man, this is going to get all the security people. And then one day it comes in and I had forgotten about it and I almost got it. It was a LastPass master password fish. This was before, I and almost everybody else moved off of that platform.
Right.
But that almost saw it, and I'm like, the knee jerk response was, "Who is trying to access my account?" But do you have any stories, maybe where you either have fallen for it? I've seen a lot of people that got into security because they were experienced, hit by a scam early on. Do you have any stories like that, or even just, hey, I fell for one of our phishing scams?
So, like I mentioned earlier, there's been three that I remember of our own phishing campaigns. Two that I was able to spot after some careful reading and analysis of the email, and one of them where I did fall for, and I did click on the link.
I mean, it
And yeah, no, and Joshua, it's funny because it's like you mentioned, it's taking advantage of the human unconscious actions autopilot, right? I was in the middle of doing, I think, three things at the same time. I was talking to someone else on the phone. Email comes in. It looks similar to something I was expecting. In the back of my head, my brain tells me, yeah, that's it.
happened.
I click on it, and there we go.
I had one where our web application filter saved my butt. It was a Google alert that just had one of my talk title names in it, and the website didn't look suspicious right off the gate. I click on it, and fortunately, the not the web application firewall, sorry, our web filtering device blocks me from being able to get there and says, hey, this is malicious. And that was how I learned about, Google alert phishing and how, people will put content on there that's not designed to ever, hit the top of Google. It's designed to generate an alert that goes to
Right.
you. So you'll click on it. And they're endlessly getting more and more clever. But I think it has happened to all of us. And I think it's important for us to tell our stories because the users, need to know they're not the only ones, that even us people in cybersecurity
Oh, absolutely.
can accidentally fall for these things, and that we
Absolutely.
run the assessments to improve our own awareness as much as to improve anyone else's.
Our CTO, who sits in the office next to me, as on I believe two occasions that I can remember, he's come over to my office, he's closed the door, and he's asked me, "Is this a phishing campaign? This email?" And he
He's
shows it to me. He shows it
great.
to me on the phone. I was like, "I don't know. You're gonna have to find out." I would suggest you review the email and go back and think about it and see.
Oh, that answer reeks of this is a phishing simulation to me.
Exactly.
Okay, so a little while back, somebody was approached me and said, "Hey, we need to normalize it being okay to admit that we fell for a scam." And I got to thinking about it. I really do agree because I think the more we can share our stories, the more that we can prevent this from happening to other people. And the person that approached me about it, she was a college student and her whole friend group had fallen for the same scam, yet no one told anyone because they were all embarrassed of this. And I think the more we can get online, share stories like this, the more effective all of our efforts can become.
Absolutely, and removing that stigma. Like you said, there is no shame in admitting that you fell for a scam or for a phishing email or for a BC attack, whatever it may be. It is a lesson learned. There's a saying that I like, which is, A loss is a loss only if you let it become a loss.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that there is absolutely shame in not telling somebody that you clicked on something. The longer they're in there, the more expensive this is going to be.
Right.
And that's part of the reason I think it's so critical for users to know that it's safe to make a mistake. They're not going to get in trouble. We just want to know as quickly as possible.
Absolutely.
And we'll praise them for telling us, just
Absolutely.
let us know
Absolutely. Yes.
immediately so
Yeah,
that we can do
we've
something
had a
about
few instances in where staff have clicked on something that ended up being malicious in nature, and it's no more than I can probably count on one hand that I can recall. And in our conversations with the staff, and when I approach the security team that's engaging with that incident, I make sure and I tell them, don't knock the user. They at least reported it and didn't try to hide it. Human nature is
it.
going to say, I made a mistake. Let me hide it. Let me not say anything.
Mhm.
Hopefully, it disappears, goes away. Nobody finds out anything.
Yeah.
Praise them, like you said, praise them for reporting it, right? And realizing after the fact, oh, I think I made a mistake here.
Yeah, I think too often we find the areas to say, "Hey, you did bad. You clicked on this. You shouldn't have clicked on this." But it's almost more important that we praise them and we tell them when they do something right, because without that element, we're doing nothing but beating them down.
Exactly.
And there's this psychological phenomenon called learned helplessness, where we can take somebody who is really good at detecting threats and spotting them, and they have a sense of pride around that. And then we trick them a bunch of times and we beat down their confidence while we trick them. And all of a sudden, they have no more confidence that they're good at this. And
Hmm.
they subconsciously and a little bit consciously become worse at it, and they become more susceptible to phishing attacks. I think there's a lot of psychology that gets forgotten when we're setting up and building our security awareness and phishing programs. So to that, do you have any tips around, behavioral science or psychology or just things that you've learned about, top one or two things that you should be doing when building out your program?
Yeah, I would say that it's nothing specific or anything that we've purposely sat down to create and understand from a psychological perspective. How can we use this to further educate our staff and our employees and further increase the maturity of our awareness program? I think it just came naturally to us, which one we just spoke about a few minutes ago, which is the praising. When someone reports something, give them a pat on the back. Good job, you know. And then the other aspect too, I would say, is the which we spoke about also too earlier, is the the personal digital lives, right? And making security awareness and cybersecurity understandable and applicable to that area. Because when it is, like we said earlier too in our discussion, that's just going to make a much stronger individual to be able to detect and report suspicious things.
15x improvement when we make it contextual to the person's role. There was a
Oh
study that
wow.
was done on it. So, not only is role based training important to warn people about the threats they're going to face, but it's critical if we ever want to really get that culture change. And I have a feeling that plays a core element in you being so successful in your initiatives. So what kind of fish click rates are you still getting? I mean, I imagine you're doing pretty good by now.
So we're doing pretty good now. A couple of months ago, when we started using, or maybe I'd say probably about a year ago, when we started using randomized phishing campaigns, using AI to generate specific ones that are tailored to specific users, the click rate went through the roof. And we expected it. And I warned my leadership team, and I told them, you're going to see the metrics jump up, but give it a couple of months and we'll see it trending back down again. And we're back down to somewhere between, last I saw was between 2.5 and 3% is our click rate.
That's awesome. I think the industry average for people that are running programs is closer to 5%. And yeah, I mean, that's just phenomenal. I will say, I think we have to be able to get strive to get it to sub 1%, because in
Yeah,
my experience, that's really where we see that large return on investment, where it's actually impacting the number of incidents we have. We have
agreed.
less close calls. We have less people that say, "Hey, I accidentally clicked on that." And that's actually, I think, one of the cool things that AI brings is more ability to customize. But I think there's a lot of other things that AI is going to bring to the table. So we've talked about the bad of AI. What are you excited about with AI? Have you seen any cool tools that you've played with or tried out?
Um, Nothing that I can say that I sat back and said, "Oh wow, that's cool." I'll take that back. I probably did say that statement, if I can recall correctly, when ChatGPT first exploded on the scene, right? And you saw the capability and the power right behind it early on, but that wore off very quickly. What is most exciting for me, and what my team also is excited, is having AI and generative AI helps you do your job much faster. Eliminates a lot of the mundane, repetitive tasks. And what took X amount of time before now can take probably a much shorter amount of time, right? Cut that in half, or maybe even more. Because now you've got at machine scale investigations, right, or incident investigations occurring from that perspective. So I think it's the productivity boost, really.
No, I agree. I think that so many people are worried about AI taking their job. And it might if you don't learn AI. But if you do learn AI and you learn how to harness its power, I think that it's just going to make you more successful, probably higher paid, and
Yep.
it's going to make you better at your job.
Yep.
I've seen things like as little as just this podcast. The amount of time that it took me to process and get it, produced and all of that has dropped significantly by greater than 50%, or cutting it in half. And so, I think we're going to see a lot more of that as we entrepreneurs or founders build out more, and our technology companies build out more and more use cases. Like, I
Yep.
love that AI is coming to search. I think that's pretty cool. Earlier I actually was trying to create a jingle to make as the intro for the song I was
Mhm.
for this podcast. I was gonna do that today or play it as we got started. We got to start a little late, but because I do think it's really cool, let me just play this for you real
Okay.
quick.
In a web of wires and screens, people looking plot and schemes, cyber tricks in every screen. Are you ready for the meme? Fishing for answers, don't get hooked. Phishing calls, they got us shook. Smishing texts, they got you hooked. Stay aware, stay off the books. Emails that just want your trust. Mouse clicks turn your data to dust.
Anyway, I just thought it
That
was
is
clever.
that is phenomenal. Phenomenal. I love it. I love it. And that sounds production quality. That sounds like it came out of a studio.
Oh, I know. So I had tried out the tools called, I think it's Sora. Is that right? No, it's not Sora. It's whatever. I forget the name of the tool, but regardless, I had tried it when it first came out and it was terrible. And then one of my buddies was in town, came over to visit, and he's like, "Man, listen to this song." And I'm like just dreading it. I'm like, "Oh, great, more of this crap from this tool." Suno AI is what it's called, and he plays it. And I'm just like, "Wow, that's actually really cool."
Yeah, it is.
Um, like, we actually, for Security Awareness Month this year, we did a whole music video, that the lyrics, the video, everything was made entirely with AI. What's cool is we used our secure or cyber coach. That's a real person, but we actually cloned or did a deep fake so that the whole thing was just fully AI generated. Um, so what are you doing for Security Awareness Month? You already do so much. It's probably hard to do more, but anything fun that you're doing?
Yeah, one thing that we're doing, which is actually the first time we do it, it is our inaugural, believe it or not, because it's something that once I say it, you're probably going to say, well, yeah, everyone else has been doing that, is a fishing tournament. And the GRC team did a really good job in coming up with the graphics and the flyers for it. So for the month of October, there's going to be a fishing tournament. It's a different campaign that's set up in the platform. Different phishing emails will go out to individuals, and the top 3 will win different monetary prizes.
Okay, now, so did you have people create the fish?
Yeah, the GRC, yeah, our GRC team who handles our security awareness training created the phishing campaigns.
Okay, and so the person on your GRC team who created the most effective fish wins.
No, I'm sorry. No, it's a phishing tournament from the user perspective. So
Okay,
those that can successfully identify the phishing campaigns
whatever.
and wins the prize, so either first, second, or third place.
I like it. I think that's really cool. No, actually, I talk to a lot of people. Fishing tournament. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. Another
Oh,
thing
wow.
that I'm going to steal from you because I
I'm
love the idea.
I would think it's a lot more prevalent in the industry. Because there's been a lot of talk around security awareness and gamification, right? Gamifying it, making it fun. So I would have assumed it was something that you probably would have heard of already.
We do a lot of gamification and have the leaderboards constantly for all of our customers. But that exact sort of approach in terms of making it more gamified, I love it. But it is actually something that I don't hear of often, and this is what I do all day, every day, as I talk to people. So very, very cool.
No, good to hear. Cool.
Okay, so any overarching lessons that you've learned throughout your career that just stand out to you, that maybe people who are just entering or even midway through their, like in the middle of their sort of rise to power, if you will, any lessons for them that you think would help them?
Yeah, two different things. One is, and these I know yourself and maybe other members of the audience would have heard these. I have heard these before. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yes.
That's it. Just keep it simple
I
as
like
you're
keep it
talking.
stupid simple.
Well, that's even a better one. If you're addressing your board of directors, your C-suite, your leadership team, middle management, down to you know regular, just normal staff and employees, keep it simple. They don't understand the jargon, and you'd be surprised at how much I still see folks using the jargon and the terms and the technical terms, and just convoluting it, and you just see the other person's eyes just glaze over. They don't understand it. Just speak in layman's terms and keep it simple. The other aspect that I would mention is going back to the basics. I think that's something that we cannot harp on enough. And I think it just needs to become part of our regular thinking as security and even technology professionals, even outside of security, and to a certain degree, even just really across any industry. Um, Focus on your processes and doing the basics right. The blocking and tackling is what's going to get you out of a jam more times than not.
I, I like it. I like it. Um, yeah, this has been really, really great. Now, before we wrap up, do you have any other stories that you want to tell?
Yeah, see, that's the only really interesting one that comes to mind, unfortunately. I wish I had much better stories and of other things we're seeing and attacks.
Well, that's good because if you had better stories, you might have also had a breach. So,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. At that point, yeah, pretty much.
Uh, but no, this has been an absolute blast. I think you've just given us phenomenal advice. So thank you for coming on the show. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for